Move the stick here. Whose stick is that? And then we check. Whose stick?
Jam 20. Jau 700 metų. Jam 20. Jau 700 metų. Jam 20. Jau 700 metų.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will present you the lecture from Transylvania to Lithuania, heraldic, sigillographic and numismatic aspects during the reign of Stephen Batory. Keeping with the theme of the conference, I have sought the closest link between Lithuania and Transylvania. The most well-known connection between Lithuania and Transylvania is that Stephen Batory, Prince of Transylvania, was elected ruler of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. During his 10-year reign from 1576 to 1586, Stephen Batory made a positive mark on the history of Lithuania. My lecture presents heraldic, sigillographic and numismatic aspects related to Transylvania, Poland and Lithuania during the reign of Stephen Batory. In the program I am presented as being from Romania, which is true, but to more precision, I am Hungarian from Transylvania. I am the president of the Transylvanian Heraldic and Vexillological Association. This is our flag, our coat of arms.
So we know this. Your exact background.
Yes. Transylvania belonged to the Kingdom of Hungary in the Middle Age and was governed by a voivode appointed by the king. After the Battle of Mohacs in 1526, it remained part of the Eastern Hungarian Kingdom, where the independent Principality of Transylvania was established under Turkish suzerainty. I come from the in the southeastern part of Transylvania. Gyulafehérvár, Alba Iulia was the capital of the Principality of Transylvania. And I drove 1,800 kilometers in 3 days.
Oh my God. Later, as a principality, and from 1765 as a Grand Principality, it became part of the Habsburg monarchy, Transylvania.
In 1867, during the time of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, it was reunited with Hungary until the Second World War, when it became part of Romania. Back to our topic. The first prince of Transylvania was John II, elected King of Hungary, known as John Sigismund Zápor. He only held the title of prince for a very short time, having resigned his kingship following the Treaty of Speyer in 1570. The first truly significant prince was Stephen Báthory. He was born on 27th of September 1533 in his family's castle at Somlyó. This is the gate of the castle of Somlyó. On the 25th of May 1521, on the death of John Sigismund, Báthory was elected Prince of Transylvania by the Transylvanian estates in spite of the opposition of the court of Vienna and contrary to the wishes of the Prince John Sigismund, who had appointed Gaspar Békés his successor. Is a Békés hill in Vilnius here. Békés insisted on his claims. A civil war ensued in which Báthory ultimately drove his rival out of Transylvania. On the flight of Henri of Valois from Poland in 1524, the Polish nobility, chiefly at the instigation of the great Chancellor Jan Zamoyski, elected Báthory King of Poland in 1575 in opposition to Emperor Maximilian, the candidate of the Senate. This is Somlyó, the birthplace of Báthory. Here's both the church, the Catholic Church, and the Baptist, the Prince. The sculpture in front of the church. He was crowned together with Anna Jagiellon, the 52-53-year-old daughter of Polish King Sigismund I the Old, the elder sister of the Sigismund II, and on the 1st of May 1576 was crowned with unprecedented magnificence. Their marriage was a formal arrangement. By taking up the titles of King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania, he also changed his title of Voivode of Transylvania, and from then on he called himself Prince of Transylvania. He conferred this title of Voivode on his elder brother, Christopher Báthory, whom he appointed governor of Transylvania. The paintings were from the Chancellery of Transylvania from 1660. This is Stephen Báthory and his elder brother Christopher Báthory. When Stephen was elected king, appointed Christopher as governor, Voivode of Transylvania. But ordered the oversee the state affairs of Transylvania, setting up a separate Transylvanian chancellery in Krakow. The main features of his policy as King of Poland was the strengthening the monarch's position. For example, when the city of Danzig sought to obtain the status of a free city and thus disobeying the king's authority, the Polish attacked in 2 times, but to no avail. Bathory was thus forced to recognize dancing rights to independent foreign affairs, self-administration, German as the official language, as well as religion freedom for Lutherans. The conflicts with the Ottoman Sultan Murad III were resolved at the last for a short time by the Peace of November, 5th of November 1677, an act signed by the Parliament in Warsaw. Despite all the financial difficulties and an exhausted army, Stephen Bathory managed to achieve some victories against the Russian Tsar, not only on the field of battle but also in diplomatic matters. Through this war, he managed to reign the troops of the Ottoman Porte and the House of Habsburg. In 1581, Stephen Bathory managed to penetrate, take into the territory of the Tsardom of Russia, and the 22 August he was at the gates of the city of Polotsk. The Pope's envoy to Rome, Professor Antonio Costabino, saved the mediate between the Polish Catholic troops and the Russian Orthodox troops. Despite his meditation, Stephen Bathory designed the city in a frosty winter. The brothers, Stephen and Christopher, Bathory Escov, despite this meditation, Stephen Bathory presented the city. Ivan the Terrible Tsar of Russia finally surrendered on January 15, 1582, and accepted this armistice of Jan Zaporski. His troops established a 20-year peace, and the Tsar ceded territories to the Polish-Lithuanian Crown. In 1578, Bathory elevated the Jesuit College in Vilnius to the rank of Academy of Vilnius, which was the first university established in the territory of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The two memorial plaques in the University of Vilnius. 3 years later, he founded a university in Transylvania, in Klausenburg. Bathory brought reforms to civil administration as well. He reformed the monetary system and mounted new royal coins at Orkus, Poznan, and Marburg. He died suddenly on 12th of December 1586 in Grodno. He was buried in Krakow in the crypt of Wawel Cathedral. The tombstone of Bathory in Wawel, my photos, and in front is one of his coat of arms. In first coat is the coat of arms of Poland, in the second of Lithuania, in the third of Kiev, in the fourth of Volhynia, and in the middle the coat of arms of Bathory family. Back to the Principality of Transylvania. At the time of the establishment of the Transylvanian Principality, the coat of arms of Transylvania had not yet been formed, as earlier the voivodes of the Hungarian kings officialized their documents with their seals displaying their own coat of arms. Thus, Stephen Bathory's Transylvanian seals and coins too carry only his family coat of arms, 3 wolf fangs in field jewels. The coat of arms of Bathory's, the argent or white fangs in jewels. Stephen Bathory's Transylvanian seal with the 3 funks. On the ducat issued by him, King St. Ladislaus of Hungary, with the battle-axe, the attribute of him, appear on the obverse, while the reverse shows the Madonna and Child Jesus, Patrona Hungariae. These are the same elements that appear on the coins of former Hungarian kings and John II, his predecessor too. This ducat was from 1575, from Seven Hermannstadt, but he have many ducats from 1572 to 1576. Ducats from Transylvania. After his coronation in 1576 in Poland, different coat of arms began to appear on the seals and coins of Stephen Bathory, depending on where of the coins have been issued. The most common are the coat of arms of Poland and Lithuania, but there are also coins with the coat of arms of Gdansk and Riga. Is a painting, anonymous painter from King, and his coat of arms as a King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania and Bathory wore funks. Some coat of arms with the Polish eagle and coat of arms of Bathory. And here is a Polish thaler, the same coat of arms, Polish, Lithuanian, and Bathory. Polish coat of arms from Neubaio, Baia Mare is in north part of Transylvania. Ducat, Polish ducat with the portrait of the king and the same coat of arms. Lithuanian thaler with the portrait and Polish coat of arms, Lithuanian coat of arms. Groschen, Bathory coat of arms, Polish eagle, and the Lithuanian. Another with an S with both funks and Polish, Lithuanian coat of arms. This issued in Riga as a Duke of Livonia. Other with the Polish eagle and the Bathory coat of arms. Ducat issued in Danzig with the coat of arms of Danzig. Ducat of Riga. And a seal as a King of Poland. And his title was Stephanus Dei Gratia Rex Poloniae et Magnus Dux Lithuaniae, Russiae, Prussiae, Mazoviae, Samogitiae, Kioviae, Volhyniae, Podlakiae, Livoniae, Nechnam Princeps Transylvaniae. Here is the king, and in the circle were the coat of arms of the territories and his rule. another seal as king with the coat of arms of Poland, Lithuania, and Batory. He has a separate seal for the arranged this Transylvanian document. During his Polish reign as Prince of Transylvania, he authenticated his documents with the seal bearing the coat of arms of Poland, Lithuania, and the Batory family. As I mentioned, Transylvania did not have an established coat of arms at that time. The rudimentary coat of arms of Transylvania appeared later on the coins on his brother Christopher, who ruled Transylvania's rival, and only on the later son, Prince Sigismund Batory, did it began to be used more frequently. Here is the seal for Transylvania with the coat of arms of Poland, Lithuania, and interesting ducat from last year of Stephen in 1586. Same ducat with Patrona Hungaria, Madonna and Jesus Child Jesus, and King Saint Ladislaus of Hungary, but as a Polish king, Stefan de Gratia Rex Bologna, and in the uppers Saint Ladislaus. A ducat like a Hungarian ducat for the Polish king. And finally the Polish seal for Transylvania. As we have seen, the Batory coat of arms is eternal, as it appears on the seals and coins of Sigmund Batory, as well as on Transylvanian, Polish, and Lithuanian coins. And finally, thank you for your attention.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very, very much. And I would like you to sign here this. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I see the next one. Maybe. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to introduce the next one. This is Dr. Rui Pereira and Maria Manuela Pereira from Portugal, and the title is The Journeys of the Rodriguez on Iberian Sephardic Family in the Inquisition Era of the 17th to the 18th century. So let's see, where's your, this one? Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the PDF. Okay, it's the PDF. Yeah, it's just the full screen version for these. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for having me here. So this presentation is about the Rodriguez family, an Iberian Sephardic family that lived during the time where the Inquisition was still very much active in both Spain and Portugal.
This is a co-authorship between myself and Maria Manuela, who is not here. So I will start actually by a rather tragic situation. In 1721, on the 30th of November, there was an auto de fe in the city of Granada in Spain. And at this time, as I said, the Inquisition was still a very powerful force. And a number of people were killed in that auto de fe. And the list of people that were convicted in that auto de fe, some of them convicted to the death penalty, others to other penalties, was published, as was custom at the time, as a small pamphlet. So this is a document in Spanish. And a total of 12 people were sentenced to death. And among those 12 people, there were 4 people from the same family. Those are the ones that are numbered 12 to 15 in the list. They were all sentenced to death. They were all from converted Jewish families from the times of the mass conversion of the late 15th century. And the oldest of those was a woman named Maria Alexandra Rodrigues. And she is said to have been 90 years old. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but she was probably over 80. And 2 of her daughters were also sentenced to death. One of them was named Inês, and the other one was named Branca. Their claimed ages were 50 and 40. And also Branca's husband, Diego de Leiva, was also convicted to death. He was 42. So let's try to know a bit more about these people. So the oldest of them, Maria Alexandra, she was born around 1631 in a town in Spain called Mancha Real. Her daughters, Inês and Branca, were both born in the coastal city of Puerto de Santa Maria. So this is basically the mouth of the Guadalquivir. Not that close to Seville, but basically it's one of those places where you go through when you go from Seville to the high sea. And they were also both killed. Diego de Leiva was born also in southern Spain, in Estepa, in around 1679. It's possible to document the marriage of Diego and Branca. Here is Diego's signature. They married in 1702. And we know that they had 2 daughters named Juana and Isabel, who in 1722, so the year after their parents were killed, they were both imprisoned by the Spanish Inquisition. And Branca was already in her second marriage to Diego. She had been previously married to a man named José Rodrigues Ceballos. Actually, to know more about this family, we have to go to a totally different document. In the proceedings of this conference, I give the details to understand why is it so, but unfortunately I don't have the time to give all the details. But there was one brother of Maria Alexandra who lived in Portugal. His name was Dionísio Rodrigues. He was a merchant living in Lisbon who was arrested by the Inquisition in 1672. And he was sentenced to various penalties, not to death, in 1673. And he had been born around 1639 in Puebla de Sanabria, which is a town in northern Spain, quite close to the Portuguese border. And from that document we know that the parents of Dionísio and of Maria Alexandra and other children were Francisco Rodrigues da Costa, who was a Spaniard from the northern region of Galicia, near Portugal, the region that Puebla de Sanabria belongs to, and Branca Rodrigues, who was from a city in northern Portugal called Vila Real. And we also get to know that Francisco's parents were named Domingos da Costa and Maria Rodrigues. And actually, Dionísio says that when he was arrested, that he had already been to most parts of Portugal and of southern Spain, and he had also been in Brazil. And here is his signature from the document pertaining to his trial. This is actually the Portuguese Inquisition documents are a huge treasure trove, because unlike what happened in Spain, Portugal kept almost all the Inquisition documents. So we have 40,000, the documents for 40,000 people that were put on trial by the Portuguese Inquisition at the Portuguese National Archives in Lisbon. And they are, most of them, at least these days, probably half of them are actually available online. So, To know more about this family, we can also go to another family member who was also put to trial in Portugal, a man not named Francisco Nunes da Costa. He was the first cousin of Dionísio and of Maria Alexandra, and he was a resident in Rio de Janeiro. He was arrested by the Inquisition in 1715, and he was sentenced to various penalties, but not to death, in 1716. So, as a resident of Rio de Janeiro, he was under the jurisdiction of the Inquisition Court of Lisbon, so this means that he was brought to Europe to be put to trial. He was already over 70 years old. He was born around 1642 in Rio. His parents were Gabriel Rodrigues from Lisbon and Isabel Rodrigues. They happened to have the same surname, and Isabel was a sister of Francisco Rodrigues da Costa, so it was Isabel that was an aunt of both Dionísio and Maria Alexandra. Isabel was from Zamora in northern Spain, also close to the Portuguese border. We actually know a bit about their story. So apparently Gabriel was a person that had a business with his future parents-in-law, and he actually eloped with Isabel to Portugal when Isabel was 14 years old. And Isabel had two brothers named Antonio Pardo and Luís Pardo, who went after the couple. But the Pardo brothers did not just went after the couple to Portugal. When the couple moved to Brazil, they followed them to Brazil, and they all remained there. So all these people eventually moved to Brazil, this part of the family. And actually, if we look at the full list of Francisco and Branca's children, we have more people apart from Maria Alexandra and from Dionísio. We also have Pantaleão, who married another Maria Rodrigues, as was previously said about other family. It's quite complicated to follow the genealogy of this family if you don't have the full documents in your possession. Fortunately, in this case, things are pretty clear. Then we have Micael Rodrigues, who married Micaela Salgado. We also have a Domingos da Costa, of which we don't know that much. We also have a Luísa Arroio da Costa, who I will discuss a bit further, who married a woman named Leonor de Castro Fajardo. We also had a son named Salvador, a daughter named Joana da Costa, who married one André Dias, and we apparently also had another daughter who married one Gabriel da Costa, but the name of that daughter is not known. You can also see that the surnames of the family members of the siblings are sometimes not the same. This was very, very common in Portuguese families. This is not even an extreme case with respect to that. And this was regardless of whether they were like converted Sephardic families or old Christian families. The customs were basically the same. So in terms of Maria Alexandra's family, what the name of her husband was Francisco Rodrigues Cardoso. And you have his signature up there. He was a customs overseer in a Portuguese border town in the Alentejo region called Campo Maior in 1672. And we know that they had several children. They had Leonor in 1664. They had Helena, called Helena Maria de Castro, who was born around 1665 and married Gabriel Fajardo del Valle. And they also had Rafael, one first Branca, and then the two daughters that were also killed alongside their mother, Inês and Branca, who I already mentioned. We know that in principle there were two Brancas because their dates of birth are quite different, and we know that the stated places of birth are completely different. And from the scattered information that we can gather from Maria Alexandra, we can see that she was actually in a number of different places. So she was born in Mancha Real, which is, let's say, in the central northern part of Andalusia. So it's not quite halfway between Madrid and the southern coast of Spain. It's still closer to the southern coast, I think. But it's, let's say, sort of central Spain. Then, by the age of 30-something, she was in Lisbon, when her daughter Helena was born. In the early 1670s, she was in Campo Maior with her husband. In 1683, she was in southern Spain, in Puerto de Santa Maria. And in 1720, she was elsewhere in southern Spain, in Malaga. And it was in Malaga where she was arrested and eventually she was put to trial and killed in Granada. In Malaga, she was living with one of her daughters in a rented room. There is documentation that can be found in an archive in Granada regarding that. And now, you may have noticed that I mentioned two people with the surname Fajardo. They were actually siblings. So Helena married Gabriel, and Luis married Leonor. Both marriages happened on the same year, the year 1683, but they happened in different cities and actually in different countries. So Helena married Gabriel in Puerto de Santa Maria, and Luis married Leonor in Tavira in Portugal. This is in the Algarve, about 25 kilometers from the Spanish border, so in eastern Algarve. So from Tavira to Puerto de Santa Maria is probably like 250 kilometers or something like that. And so Luis and Helena, they were uncle and niece. Gabriel and Leonor, they were siblings. And they had an additional brother named Rafael, who is not directly related to this family, but the importance of Rafael to the information that we have on this family will become apparent in a moment. And the parents of these three siblings were named Pedro Fajardo del Valle and Isabel de Castro. Now, in the documentation of the Portuguese Inquisition, I already told you that there is a lot of documentation from the Portuguese Inquisition. There are some collections of letters from the Spanish Inquisition courts. And one particular collection of letters, once I was quite astonished because I was going through all these collections of letters looking for interesting information, and suddenly I started reading a letter that appeared to be very interesting and had the very specific characteristic, which I only realized about after I had read probably like 5 lines. I realized I wasn't reading Spanish, I was reading Italian. It's the only document in Italian in, I don't know, 100 letters or so. I think it's the only one. And what this letter says, this letter actually pertains to the couple that I just mentioned. I will just go back. Luís Arroio da Costa and Leonor de Castro Fajardo. And what the letter says, so the letter was sent from Livorno in Italy, from the Inquisition court there, in that city in Italy, to its counterpart at Évora in Portugal, and it reveals that Luís and Leonor escaped the Inquisition to Genoa around 1686. And they took the Jewish names of Daniela Arroio da Costa and Judith Fajardo, and they claimed that they had come from Amsterdam, but they raised suspicions since they only spoke Spanish. And in 1689, they actually remarried according to Jewish custom in Livorno. And the reason we know that is that because there is the marriage contract for them in Livorno, written in Hebrew, which was one of the marriage contracts that are mentioned in this book, the Registers of Ketubot of the Jewish nation in Livorno, who was published by a group of researchers in France from the Cercle de Généalogie Juive, and they were, in particular, Alain Edja was kind enough to send me the image of the actual marriage contract for these people, which is shown here. This is actually very, very interesting because this, among other things, this mentions the Jewish names of the couple, which confirm what was said in the letter that was sent from Livorno to the Portuguese Inquisition, and it actually mentions the Jewish names of the father of groom and bride, which is something that is not shown elsewhere, and I really have no idea if they ever use those names, because I don't think the father of the groom and the father of the bride ever left the Iberian Peninsula, but in any case, it's quite interesting. And we now get to the point where that third sibling becomes apparent. So that third sibling was actually a physician, Dr. Rafael Fajardo del Valle, and he moved to France in 1722. And some of his descendants, in turn, moved to the Caribbean. And in 1780, there was a book about a court case of the Fajardo family that was published in present-day Haiti. And it mentions Gabriel and Leonor, and it mentions that they had the grandson of Leonor named Juté, And this book might have more info, but appears to be lost, and only some citations are known. And those citations are from an author that some of you might have heard about, and he's famous, or should I say infamous. His pen name was Zosar Tchaikovsky, and my apologies if I am not saying this correctly. And in one of his collections of, one of his books called Franco-Judaica, an analytical bibliography of books, pamphlets, decrees, briefs, and other printed documents pertaining to the Jews in France, 1500 to 1788, which was published in 1962, it mentions a number of things about the family. And it mentions that this document, which was a document that was prepared for the court case that was related to the inheritance, I can just give you a couple of words on this. What happens was that basically, according to the French law at the time, the Portuguese Jews could not inherit from their parents, if I understand correctly. But what the family was able to do was that they were able to prove, no, we are not Portuguese Jews originally, although we are Jewish, but in origin, we are actually Spanish Christians. And so, in that way, they were able apparently to circumvent that provision regarding the inheritance. And so it gives a lot of interesting information, which I elaborate in the proceedings. Just to finish, this family, the part from Gabriel and his wife, Helena, their descendants remained in Portugal, they remained in Tavira. They married into other Sephardic families until the late 1700s, and from the 19th century onwards, they started mixing with old Christian families. And there are descendants of the Rodriguez family in Eastern Algarve up to the present day. The lady in the picture was named Isabel Maria Travassos de Aragão Lamy. She was born in 1858 and she died in 1923. She was born in Tavira, she died in Tavira, and she was the sixth great-granddaughter of Helena and Gabriel. And just to finish, this is the full line coming from the earliest people that I mentioned to her. And just as a brief summary, the earliest generations are mentioned in brief in the proceedings. The latest ones, it would not be possible. But so, I already mentioned how Francisco Rodrigues da Costa married Branco Rodrigues, then Maria Alexandra, who was killed in Granada, married Francisco Rodrigues Cardoso, and then Helena married Gabriel Fajar del Valle. In the following generations, we still have marriages with other people of Sephardic descent. So, Gabriel and Helena had a daughter named Isabel Maria, who married a silversmith called Manuel Sequeira, who was also, he was of Portuguese ancestry, but Portuguese Sephardic ancestry. Then, their child, Helena de Castro de Sequeira, who was another Helena like her grandmother, married a Spanish man called Rodrigo Alonso Núñez, who knew almost nothing about his family. He actually had problems with the Inquisition, and when he was asked, are you a new Christian or an old Christian? He said, and when he was asked, were your parents new Christians or old Christians, your father or mother? And he said, well, at least one of those must have been a new Christian, because I am a new Christian myself, but I have no idea. Basically, because his father was from Genoa and his mother was from Cadiz in Spain. We see here an Italian connection. I don't know if there is any kind of relationship with the people from Italy that I mentioned earlier, because I could never go back further than those parents. Then they had so Rodrigo and his wife Helena, they had a daughter named Isabel, like her grandmother, who married João de Torres. João de Torres was born somewhere on planet Earth. I know where many of his siblings were born, but I have no idea about him. He was actually a descendant from the Rivera family. He's related to the Riveras of Newport, Rhode Island. Then they had a daughter, so Isabel and João had a daughter named Mariana Josefa de Porciúncula, who married her first cousin, Luís Francisco Torres, also from the first family, the same family. And then they had a daughter named Maria do Carmo, who was still 100% Sephardic, who married Cláudio Francisco de Arnedo Velasco, who was also 100% Sephardic or close to that. He was, among other families, descended from the Pereiras of Mogadouro, who are the same Pereiras of Baron Diego de Aguilar, through which he is connected, for instance, to some of the grandchildren of Queen Camilla of the United Kingdom, because Camilla's son-in-law is descended from Baron Diego de Aguilar. And so their son, Luís José de Neto, who was Isabel in the picture's grandfather, was the last full Sephardic Jew, let's say, in this line, because then he married Maria Francisco Travassos, who was a woman from a family who, on one side, it was a family of military officers, on the other side, they had some connections to nobility, and they had royal descent, and then, in turn, their daughter married another man from a family who was also like a military tradition, so no more Sephardic Jews in this line. Just to finish, what about the Brazilians? Well, we don't know actually that much about the Brazilians. We know that those people that went to Brazil, they also suffered heavily at the hands of the Inquisition. They were actually included in a book on the conversos of São Paulo by a leading Brazilian genealogist called Marcelo Bogaciovas. And according to him, at least 15 descendants of Isabel Rodrigues and her husband were arrested by the Inquisition. It is likely that there are modern-day descendants of these lines, but they have not been identified. I have been in contact with people in Brazil. They tell me that basically there is a gap in the São Paulo records, or in the 1700s, that makes it impossible or almost impossible to bridge this gap. And so the author, you may have recognized the surname as a Lithuanian surname. He was a very remarkable Brazilian genealogist who for 50 years made amazing contributions to family history. He was born in São Paulo to a Lithuanian father from Vilnius and a mother of Portuguese colonial descent. He was the main founder of the Brazilian association ASBRAP, who was created in 1993, and he served as president of it for probably most of the time. And he published this book, of which I have a signed copy here, because he was kind enough to offer me this book. And the interesting thing is that when he gave me this book, I had no idea that this family was studied there. We had no idea we had done that. So I dedicate this presentation to him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pereira, and I ask you for signing. Here's a big space for you. You can go. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Tai kreipiuosi į svečius, tai ačiū šiandieną pirmos dienos pabaiga, ačiū visiems dalyvavusiems ir kita dienos pusė yra skirta tik lektoriams. Ačiū, kurie dalyvavot ir kviečiu susitikti rytoj Valdovų rūmuose. Ekskursija yra lektoriams.
Jam 20. Jau 700 metų. Jam 20. Jau 700 metų. Jam 20. Jau 700 metų. Jam